about it.
Jake Connor's on the podcast. He's not, just in case you're not watching.
£4.50. Reduced from £9. Who on earth, I've just said, who on earth pays £9 for a cutout of not just Jake Connor, but anybody?
Obviously no one, because that's why it's reduced to £4.
Presumably when he wasn't picked for England.
But you did pay £4.50.
Yeah, but it's tax deductible. It's been on the podcast. But what if I'd have? I could have got a big. I don't know where we're going to put it.
We need to prop him up.
I'll put him here.
He needs to join.
Yeah.
The bench, the end of the bench, doesn't he? Obviously.
Oh, yeah. I'll bring back the two dolls in a future program. But you could buy a giant, because I can't name that. You could buy a giant Cameron Smith head if you wanted. They had a few players. Some of them, have to admit, I didn't recognise.
We should have got some tape and more blue tack and stuck him
we'll
there, because
we'll
it looked like he was joining in the conversation.
You can see how well planned these things are.
He's not going to stay up. But we'll...
No. It's the quietest I've seen him, actually.
Need a blue Peter.
He'd be a dream to referee if we spent most of the time like that.
It's... we're only doing an hour, so we're going to keep it quick. It's the come down from the Ashes and everything, and
I'm just enjoying watching Jake Connor's face slip into the magazine.
Slip into the background.
Which
is exactly it's almost a metaphor for the series.
It's where do we start with the actual game and just get out of the way?
Go on, then.
There's not much to say about the actual game.
Yeah, he's gone. I'm going to put that away because that's going to be distracting.
Phil put lots of effort into something on the table which you can't see, but amused me greatly when I turned up. What?
I'll just hold him.
If they were online,
lovingly.
If they were on the Leeds Rhinos website on the shop, I would buy a lot more of the heads just to have around the place. But they're not on. I'd have to go to Headingley, and I don't need to go to Headingley now until.
I stopped myself. I had a thought, and I stopped myself. But it was to do with a head.
Don't do it.
Anyway, let's move on.
No, it's not as bad enough as it is. The game. Did you watch it, James?
I did. They feel like they've added an extra 5 or 10 minutes each week in terms of their performance, to some degree. Just frustrating.
Are you clutching at a straw there?
Yeah, I am.
Not as much as some of the squad and the coach are. But
look, I think they were improved in attack. They took the line on a little bit more. I appreciate it's a low benchmark, but they were improved in attack, but clearly not good enough.
There was some mitigation in that Brimson had to go off after 10 minutes.
Yeah.
I'd have been interested to see them play with how they'd lined up, because it did impact their performance, no doubt about that. So it's just the sucker punch, isn't it? As we've had in previous weeks, where they have all that pressure and can't score, and then Australia go and score.
But the issue is that you can't fault the fact that you're getting back-to-back sets, that building pressure. That's exactly what you can. But our only attacking weapon seemed to be a short kick in behind, and at this level, that is never going to be enough.
No.
And I wondered how to approach it, because obviously we finished our magazine yesterday, went to print last night. That's probably the earliest I've got in the fact that it's out this week.
It's in the corner there. It's got Michael Lewis on it.
Well, we'll talk about him in a minute. But the series finished up 70-18 in total. The score at Headingley on Saturday evening was 30 points to 8. In 1982, when the game was revolutionised by the Kangaroo Invincibles, I know neither of you were born.
It's a history lesson.
No, the final score in the game at Headingley, when the series was lost 3-0, was 32-8. So again, if we were to say what's changed,
not much.
You'd have to say the history books will show just the scores of the games, not how close England were on a number of occasions. And the worry is, I went back to some of the quotes that were made after that defeat in '82 for comparison, and if you'd have taken them out of their context in isolation and put them next to the report of the game on Saturday, they would have been equally as valid. Yeah. And I think that's the disappointing thing. It's not really about how we played or the tactics we used. That'll come out as a separate issue. It's about what have we done as a sport
Well, you're tinkering, aren't you? You're tinkering with things when you start talking about tactics and individual selections. Ultimately, there's a bigger fundamental problem, which
Yeah.
we discussed last week. If you don't win a series for 50 years,
What's the reason for that? It's a
It's a
structural
fundamental-
issue.
yeah.
And I do think again, there's a lot of talk about changing the coach and approach this time. And guys,
how much better would another coach have done?
how much difference because of the access to the squad would they have been able to make? I think looking back now at the end of a series where a lot was promised and not that much delivered, there is criticism at the tactic and selection end.
But would you, as a Super League club, ever go into a season and think, hang on a minute, we're not going to train, and we're not going to have a warm-up game,
Yeah.
and we're going to expect to perform against the best team in the
And
world,
we're going to have played
and hope to win?
a third more games than the opposition that we're playing.
It defies logic. So what it tells you is that the international game in this country is not prioritised.
But
And if that's the answer, that's
but
the answer.
130,000 people turned up. So if we got the international game right, it's far more of a cash cow than putting 14 teams in Super League. Which again, when you look at the analysis of what was going on in '82 and what is going on now, it's all about number of games, intensity of games, lack of preparation in terms of not having a mid-season international window. Not having something equivalent to the state of origin so that people can step up. All of that is exactly what was being talked about then.
But do you know what I think we need? Another review to determine
Well, there will
exactly
be a
what
review.
what we know.
Shaun Wane said, "I will be preparing a review."
Yeah, I mean, like, we need a review. We don't need a review. Everybody knows the answers in the same way we all know the answers on the strategic review.
But the other thing about all of this, which does come back to the coach and the decision that the coach made to almost adopt a siege mentality in Manchester, is that we were waiting around in the mix zone after the game on Saturday. We were just separated by a barrier from a lot of the crowd that wanted to meet the players coming out of the dressing room. There were loads of kids there. It was encouraging how many kids, and you think, oh, that's great, until you realise they only want to see the Aussies. Now I know
they got to meet Danny Maguire, so that was good for them, and Paul McShane.
I know the Aussies clearly aren't here every
Exactly.
week, but because the Aussies had engaged with the community during the week in Leeds, kids had come down to get their shirts signed by Reece Walsh.
Yeah, they're always going to favour greeting the Aussie players or meeting the Aussie players because of the scarcity factor.
But
However,
we talk about making stars, don't we?
Yeah.
That one of the other things that we don't do enough is turning our players into household recognisable names. This entire month has gone past. In terms of England playing Australia, brilliant. In terms of the number of people that have turned up, brilliant. In terms of the media interaction in the newspapers and column inches, brilliant. But nobody knows any of the England players. They all know the Aussie ones. We have done that so wrong.
and that's all entirely within our own control.
Yes.
Costs almost nothing,
It doesn't cost anything.
and yet it's not done. So that's a more fundamental question, really. Like, how has that come about? Is that because Shaun Wane, in charge of England, has said we need to keep everything in house? We want to be based in Wigan because we've got a
Siege
training
mentality.
base. You know, we don't want to be interfered with, etc., etc. And I'm pretty sure that that's where it's come from.
Yes.
But then the RFL, as the governing body, should be saying, hang on a minute, we need to think we've got PR and communication experts in the organisation. We actually need to agree a strategy here. Or has there ever been a conversation along
I've
those
got to move
lines?
Jake Connor because he does look like you.
I'm just enjoying him, cuddling him.
No, we'll leave him there. Right, so we've had 3 test series since the World Cup, haven't we? The World Cup was 2022.
Yeah.
2023 was Tonga.
Yeah.
2024 Samoa.
Yeah.
2025 Australia. And all 3 have had the final testing in Leeds.
Yeah.
Because
Home
we've
of,
had,
home
it's
of
the home,
England
it's the
League,
home, apparently so.
Home-
Yeah,
no,
apparently.
it's the home of rugby league.
It's home of, no, it's Bellevue. So we've had 3 years. It's causing so much trouble. There's no wonder he wasn't in the squad. We've had 3 years of test matches being played in Leeds, the final one of a 2-3 test series or whatever. And in none of those years, I can think of any engagement with the community. Now, people can say, well, we sold out at Everton, we sold out at Leeds, you don't need to do anything. Of course you do, because the Australians have done it. They're not going to sell any more shirts to people because you can't get them or whatever. But they've come out, they've done. Reece Walsh has been everywhere with kids. I know he hasn't spoken to us. and I said this last week.
No, but
they've
been very careful with him as well because they don't want to overexpose him, and they've made sure that he's done the right thing by always signing autographs, always having his selfie taken. He's done a couple of interviews with Australian media, but that it would have been very easy to focus solely on him, and I don't think they would have wanted that. And as it happened, Cameron Munster was the player of the series anyway. But the problem is that whoever we decide England's best player was, and I'd say it was Herbie Farnworth.
I'd agree. When
Herbie walked out of that dressing room and we were talking to him, there wasn't a clamour of the kids to speak to Herbie, which there should have been.
Yeah, fair point.
Where has been the opportunity for any kids outside of Wigan? Because for the two series before, and I'm sure this one as well, Wigan have got their half term, and I'm sure I've said this on the podcast in the last couple of years, so I'm not going new on this. Where's been the opportunity for other kids outside of Wigan to meet the England players during these series? They've not been out at St Helens, not been out at Warrington, not been at Leeds, Wakefield, Castleford, Hull, wherever, doesn't matter, because everything's been based in Wigan. And I understand why.
Well,
but where's the captain's run? Friday.
Yeah.
Right. Now, I didn't go on Friday because I thought it was just going to be a normal, you get 5 minutes and that's it. As it turns out, they invited Scoey and his grandchildren, he invited everyone, Rob Burrows' nephew was there or whatever.
Alan Langer.
The Australians have outplayed us on the pitch and murdered us off the field with their PR have been superb. We want to dislike the Aussies. We've got this documentary series, haven't we? Oh, I hate the Aussies. I hate the Aussies. They hate us. We hate them. And they've come across as wonderful people, wonderful tourists.
It's interesting.
Great players.
Yesterday I got to take a group of Australian fans around Headingley to talk to them about the ground because they're fascinated by this dual rugby cricket ground. They went there for the game and they wanted to go back and understand a little bit more about what it meant to rugby league, and some of the heritage that's in there allows you to do them a tour and talk about not just what it means to English.
Is this what you're going to do when you retire, Phil? Are you going to do
no, this is
walking tours of Headingley?
No, this is when you get a very late phone call.
I know somebody
There's no one else
a mind of information.
Could you just pop along?
Yeah.
And we can talk about the state of the respective dressing rooms, but that's another story. The really interesting thing about all of that is that they were saying to us that we have a worry that our sportsmen come over as being a bit arrogant because we know we're the best. We have there's this assumed air about Australians that they're almost indifferent to the media and that they're condescending because we know you're not as good as we are, and I hope that hasn't come across. And I'm saying it couldn't be more of the reverse truth.
And if you are
that
the
if
best,
you're being honest, we felt more close to your players who've been bought out still in kit to do all their media requirements than trying to chase the yes, we could have gone to Wigan and got as many interviews with England players as we want, but they haven't made it as easy or accessible as the Aussies did, and that isn't why we've won or lost. It's just something else that we need to look at about talking of the bigger picture, which we've spoken about a lot over the last.
But just interrupting there, just around winning and losing, one of the factors that will have played into that decision to be based at Wigan and not get involved will have been around, we need to be focused, we need to win. And hang on a minute, you've just lost 3-0. So how good's that been?
Well, we haven't been flexible enough in anything we've done. Either our team selection, our tactics once the games have started, or the decision to base ourselves away from everybody. But I think the bigger picture is that International Rugby League over the last 3 weeks, be it here or in the Pacific Championships, we had the biggest crowd rugby league's ever had in New Zealand. We've had the Pacific Championship final sold out yesterday. There was a World Cup qualifier, the women's final and the men's final, which apparently was almost exclusively Samoan fans. So, Australia aren't even playing and the games are being sold out. You've had 130,000 people over here, including a record Ashes attendance.
But we shouldn't play at Wembley.
Oh, and interestingly, that final was in Sydney.
Yeah.
And the controversy about Sydney not getting supposedly the next World Cup final.
Which they're not. It's going to Brisbane. Mm-hmm. But all of that, the value of International Rugby League this year has never been higher. Going into a 10-nation World Cup where, watching some of that Pacific Championship men's games, there are 5 nations that could possibly start that tournament and think they've got a very good chance of winning it. And we're probably 5th now.
I was going to say, we're in that 5.
clinging on without thinking. But because of that, people have seen the fact that there are very few broadcasting agreements for international rugby league. There is a huge value there. If we get that right and that filters back into the game and the clubs, then the clubs should be doing everything they can to enhance international rugby league, and they won't.
I'll get to these comments in a minute because there's loads of them. Where have England women been? Where's England's women's? They played an Origin series, an Origin game, rather. Excuse me. They're not playing anyone. What's the point? We've had all these games that were hidden because they're playing at the same time as England's men. We had Sophie Robinson on the programme last week. She was great as always, talking about the Jamaica game and how it's great, but ... We've got the England team.
Paul Cook in the magazine, who was part of the Ireland coaching team, he said it's great. Ireland for him is really important. Played 2 great games against Wales. Why the hell they're playing them at the same time as the 2 Ashes games? He doesn't know because he wants to watch the Ashes. So.
Insane.
We are the insular ones.
We've got a product.
It's not Australia being insular.
It's exactly what Peter Volandis was saying about our domestic game. We have a product, but we don't know how to sell it. The international game, we have a product. The stupid thing is, because we won't have a mid-season international through, again, a fixture list that makes absolutely no sense whatsoever going into a World Cup. Because we don't, at the moment, unless something drastic changes, build in the opportunity for whoever is the England coach to have a run through mid-season, ideally against France, possibly in France. The next time you will see that England team, and 130,000 people have got imbued with international rugby league, will be 2027.
And then we'll wonder, of course, why, England Rugby Union are playing Fiji and it's got more courage and there's more people care. Because we don't give enough people this product.
We're playing New Zealand in 2027 and looking at the way the Kiwis won the Pac champs, they've regenerated. And you could say, maybe Wembley doesn't mean as much to New Zealand as it does to Australia. It'd be perhaps harder to fill at 60,000 at Wembley. There are more Australian expats in London than there are New Zealanders, although there are quite a lot of New Zealanders. But if you were to go to Hill Dickinson with that first game of the series, I think you'd get 50,000 people.
Unless we should price it right. Sell it as an event, and it's not much of an event, is it? The DJ built a great atmosphere and whatever, but
I have to say,
playing marching on together.
The fireworks were great, and I'm not a fan of fireworks during daylight, but they really raised the atmosphere. The anthems are fantastic. We need something like a Hacker or a Civic.
We need a better anthem. We need something that isn't God Save the... We said Land of Hope and Glory, and it should have been because Avance Australia Fair is a much more... trying not to sing along, and ours is...
It's a strange one, the national anthem, isn't it? It's a whole can of worms, that. But
oh, no. So I shouldn't bring that up. And there's a can of worms to open in a moment, but we'll come to that in a bit. I got the feeling in the mix zone afterwards, and we're privileged, and people don't always realise this. We're privileged to see the players, not the most raw, but after a game when, there's still a bit of adrenaline or whatever. Cameron Munster was superb, by the way, and everything he said, and talking about the NRL buying Super League, he didn't mean that, but he explained afterwards.
Every time he speaks, he's just so fluent and well spoken.
He speaks too quickly if you're trying to make sense of what he said. And I thought Harry Grant was great.
Yeah.
And again, going slightly off topic, because this is what this programme is.
Well, like the Australians, you think there's no structure to the programme, but there actually is. But it's just all lots of moving parts all over the field.
One of the other questions that was raised after the game was how good is this Australian team? Because there are certain people saying,
rubbish now, yeah.
Couldn't even beat a 2 that was on it. And you're thinking, no, they were as good as they needed to be.
What was the aggregate score, Phil?
70 points to 18.
They didn't play great across any of the 3 games. They didn't need to.
No.
If they'd been pushed more, they would have been greater.
Probably, yeah.
But standing again in that mix zone, when their spine, which has been the same for all 3 games, is Reece Walsh, did all right. Cameron Munster, the player of the series. Yep. Nathan Cleary, who everybody said didn't do anything.
Yeah, he's rubbish.
He
didn't have to do anything,
no,
did he?
What he did was ensure that everybody around him was doing everything. And Harry Grant, you're talking about 4 players who, in future years, when their careers are looked back, if they continue in the vein that they played at the moment, they could be classed as potential immortals. It's not about how good they are. Those players in that team are as good as you are likely to see in this game at the moment.
I got tickets because I said last week I wanted to get tickets so my nephew could see this team because we've seen England, but you get to see these stars once in a blue moon, don't you? And to get the opportunity to see those players. My mum was very upset though because there were people booing Reece Walsh, and she likes Reece Walsh,
Everybody
which is
likes
surprising. Too much swearing in the South Stand as well, but
Well, that's because they're like foreign supporters in there.
marching on together, what's that all about? But going back to the mix zone, I wonder because we've had this documentary series, we've seen a peek behind the curtain, so we've seen some of what is said to the players. I wonder how much they were told before this series, and they have to be told this because we can win this, we're going to win this, and then the realise, because as soon as that final hoot has gone on the final game, and everything's laid bare, and you know what the score's been and the performances, I wonder how much the players realised, no, we weren't going to beat them, because it just.
I think we're moving now into the realms of. I think we've talked about the series overarchingly that it's a success in what we wanted it to achieve. I think we've talked about how whoever is the coach of England is doing it with at least one hand tied behind
100%.
their back, possibly two. We've talked about, even if we all wrote down our favoured squad for England, we're talking about maybe 4 or 5 players. It's not like there's a whole pool of talent that's been missed out. One of the things I think we have to focus on at the end of now having seen all 3 games is, did we use the players that we chose? If we accept that those are the players, like the debates that who should have been and have gone, those are the players. Were we flexible enough to ever win this series?
No.
Because I'm going to use one example, which I think we might have spoken about anyway. I can't remember where we have chatted about these things. Mikey Lewis.
We talked about the last 10 minutes last week.
But if you accept that going into this squad, that maybe Shaun Wane didn't explain why he didn't pick Jake Connor in a manner that would have been less pressure on him from the outside world. You know, Connor was brought up in a press conference this time.
But it didn't make sense, his explanation.
No, so if he just said, look, I've got room for one X factor player in the way I want to play, and it's Mikey, because Mikey's been in the squad for the last couple of series. Mikey's a bit versatile. Mikey can do what I need him to do, and I don't have to tell him what I need to do because he's that right. So Mikey has played the entire season of the treble-winning side at number 6. He's been slightly back from the defensive line. He's chosen when he can make the best incursions for maximum damage. We've now played 3 games at international level with Mikey as our, let's say, one X-factor player, and he hasn't played 1 minute in that number 6 position. Now, it might be unfortunate that Brimson had to go off this time, but Mikey didn't have to play fullback. Well, you could have put Farnworth at fullback, Watkins in the centre. Mikey could have still played in his natural position of 6. The fact that the captain was 6, the captain who has not played particularly well, but has played every minute of every game, that shows such a level of intransigence by the coach that he needs to be made accountable for that.
I've watched this documentary about referees. And so you've got Chris Kendall and you've got Liam Moore. You can't pick them both. They can't both be referees. We can go back to having 2 referees if you want, like the Australians did. But you can't pick both.
7-4-5 game.
Pick one, and then what? We're going to pick the other one as the reserve. You know what I mean? You can't. Why is he on the bench? Well, you either pick him or you don't bother. If you don't bother, that's fine because you've made a decision that says, I'm going with Smith and Williams. What will be, will be. You can't predict injuries or whatever.
But he didn't pick. He picked him in week 1.
Yeah. So why?
So
it doesn't make sense.
You know, the spine changes from week 1 to week 2 don't make sense to me because they maybe not perform that well, but you just say you'd almost be better saying, look, I back the fellas to play better this week because I think these are the best guys in the key positions, and you know. But he didn't. He changed tack, which suggests that he's not 100% sure which is his best spine.
But I just thought we were far too formulaic throughout all 3 games. That you could pick moments when, yes, our skill levels weren't quite as high as they should have been if we were ever going to score. You could pick periods where we were on top, physically matching them a little bit in the forwards. But we never looked to me like a team that knew how to win a game.
But that's true, but that's reflective of the competition.
But it's also reflective of the tactics.
It is, but I would say the majority of the teams that play in Super League play a structured way and at times a boring way. There are teams that with more fluency because they're playing 30 odd games a year where they know each other better in the spine, can play a little bit differently.
If you look at Wakefield and if you look at Lee, two examples just off the top of the head, they are never going to die wondering. Whether they're in an arm wrestle and they win 1-0 like Lee did at Wigan, one thing that they're always going to do is they have a philosophy of how to win a game. They're not looking to contain their opposition to then win it. That went out probably about 10 years ago. And the Aussie game, which is why, again, you talk about, well, should Shaun Wane be the coach or not, which I'm sure we will, is, well, okay, what's the alternative? The Aussie game has moved on. I'm not sure Sean's perception of how the game is played.
And everyone else plays the Aussie game because
because of the number of games we play, which you're absolutely right, and because of the need to preserve the energy of players over such a long period of time, 5 drives and a kick is something that you do revert to not necessarily save energy, but obviously you can't be sparkling champagne attack for over 35 weeks if you include the Challenge Cup. So you'd have to temper when you do it. And you have to do it when the grounds are better as well, because the other stupid thing about playing 30 odd weeks is we're going to be playing in a frost when we start. We're going to be ending in the rain, and we'll have 2 months of lovely sunny weather when we can throw the ball about. But I don't think we have been... the phrase is what? No plan B. I don't think we ever had a plan B. Never a C, a D or an E. It's A or it's nothing.
He pretty much said that in the press conference last week when he said, and I was surprised, I know you'd said it in the pod, but when I actually read it for my own... with my own eyes and read it, well, we always said we would use him in the last 10 minutes. So what? Like, somebody gets injured this week and you have to make changes in the same way that you think, hang on a minute, this is... Suddenly the game's gone if we're not careful because they've just scored. We've got to change up here. We've got to do something differently because if we lose this game, we're finished.
Exactly.
And there hasn't been a change. And I think ultimately that's why Shaun will go. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I think so.
There's a strong public perception that he should go. I'd be surprised if he retains his position.
I do think that there should always be an understanding that this post is almost impossible.
It is.
It's like the Graham Taylor documentary, isn't it?
But I do think as well that when... I think... Yeah, and I think Brian Carney has said it better than
I need to find that quote, don't I?
That there were 2 main objectives for Shaun when he came in post. One was to get to a home World Cup final. And I still think that is a real blight on his coaching career, that we can beat Samoa by 60 points in the opening game and we lose in the semi-final.
I think he should have gone after that.
So the second thing he said was, I'm obsessed with winning the Ashes. That was the word he kept using, I'm obsessed. And now we've not only lost the Ashes, but we've lost the Ashes 3-0. I suspect that that's what makes his position untenable.
Well, I think so. I'm hard pressed to hear an explanation as to why he should retain his position. I don't know who will
be doing his appraisal at the RFL, but you'd start with
and that's not doing a disservice, as we've already said, to the whole background of over too many games, etc., and the lack of depth. But you've articulated it well. Is that unfortunately you have to be judged on results as a coach, in the same way as a referee on decisions. And for me, there are too many things that he's done or not done.
And I also think that if you say the World Cup's only a year away, so it's difficult to make a change, I think you're going to be going with virtually a similar squad of players.
We're not going to win it, Phil.
No, they're not going to have training sessions anyway, so what's they going to do?
So you can change the coach.
Of course you can.
Because if you don't, you'll get the same.
Yeah.
And now you've mentioned him, Adrian Lamb should be the coach. Some comments before we get on to some real meat and drink stuff, because there's some real stuff we need to go into. Paul says 2 tries in 3 games says all about England's style of play. Has this series shown how far behind the game is here? No, because we already knew it, but we can't accept it.
No, it shows that we haven't moved on from
1982.
In 1982, where the game had to completely reevaluate itself. What came after that was we invested our national jerseys in some young players who turned out to be generational players. So we next played the Aussies in '84 over there, and I don't know if people have seen the try. I know we mentioned it before, but Gary Schofield's try in Brisbane is one of the greatest international tries. But Brian Noble was the youngest skipper Great Britain had. We were starting to get Ellery Hanley coming through. Now I know you're talking about a generation of players who are not the same as the players we've got at the moment. But what we managed to do was put youth into that team,
But they might be, mightn't they?
and a pathway and a structure. And I don't see us doing that at the moment. Therefore,
Did the
we've gone back.
Grevin coach didn't bother picking players with credit in the bank?
Again,
And
I know we've mentioned this before, and hindsight is a wonderful thing, but I think we've been saying this during the 3-test series, is that you're picking 24 players. The likelihood is, unless something goes majorly wrong with injuries, you're not going to play all 24. Therefore, the Aussies brought with them Ethan Strange, who was an outstanding player for Canberra this year.
we should have picked him on
But
Saturday.
he's young. And Blake Brayley. Now, neither of those two young players got an opportunity to play. And the Aussies were quite right not to just make changes for the sake of
they want to
making
win
changes.
3-0.
No, because test jerseys should mean something. And the players that had played in them didn't deserve to have them taken off them. But what they've got is two players that are now inculcated in whatever the Australian culture is, itchingly desperate to play for them, and have given them a taste of it. And they may well play in the World Cup, because you're going to have to play group games, semis and final. Why do we chose not to go down the putting in a Harry Robertson or a Lewis Martin, who could have played at Headingley, because the series was already lost.
But I bet Hull and I bet St Helens are really chuffed that they've had a rest and they've not been indoctrinated into this nonsense. Which
But they
will
haven't.
come to naught.
Yeah.
Well, I know they should have. They should have been picked, Phil.
I'm not just talking about them. I'm saying what got us out of the trough of '82 was the realisation that we needed to then start looking at a new generation of players.
As you say, hindsight is wonderful, but the problem is we saw this before.
Yeah.
So we knew what was going to happen,
Yeah.
and we were right on what's going to happen. Not always right on things, but we were right on this. And when you look at some of the players who could have played, who didn't, and haven't played on and whatever,
I think it's more about giving fringe players the experience, so that you can change the coach going into the World Cup, because you have already said, right, we're moving into a different cycle. At the moment, we're stuck. You would say, looking at that England team, that Bateman, Walmsley, maybe Watkins, Darryl Clark, they're not going to play in the World Cup.
There's the damn indictment. Callum Watkins has been one of the best players. I said it last week.
No.
It's not an indictment on him that he was the best player in the second test.
Absolutely.
It's on the England squad that, how old is he?
35.
35.
But Cameron Munster said something that I hadn't even considered, because we know that Walmsley, Bateman and Watkins played in the 2017 World Cup final. Munster was in the Australian squad. He was nowhere near playing in that final. And he actually, I think he said was he 21? Didn't fully understand what playing for Australia. He was part of their World Cup winning squad in 2017. We have to do that.
But again, key positions in Super League are not being played by English players because of the quota, and it comes back to the same thing we've said before, that expanding it to 14 teams, increasing the quota, all flies in the face of the attempt to try and improve England's record. So you have to say that the clubs, and it is the clubs here, the clubs do not give a stuff about international rugby league.
Here's where I can not stick the boot on my own club, but before the quota was enhanced, that's not the word I'm looking for, is it?
It's extended.
Extended. Lachlan Walmsley wasn't going to be given a new contract. He's an Australian winger. He's a good player.
He's a good
right.
try scorer.
He's fine. But they weren't going to keep him because they had to work within the restrictions. But as soon as it was extended, they gave him a new contract. Well, what's the point? If he wasn't good enough 3 weeks ago, but he's good enough now, and that stunts the growth of another young winger or whatever
Jaden
coming
Myers.
through. And that's not Lachlan Walmsley's fault. And he's not a bad player. I'm not saying he.
And nor is it the club's fault for stockpiling players because of the length of the season. But I do think we've been conservative with a small and a large C.
But yeah, I mean, we're going back. I'm going backwards here. But yeah, we have a review. We don't get to the end of the review before making a fundamental decision about the structure of the competition, without knowing what the review says.
Because it was nonsense.
It was ridiculous.
Another poll says, more of the same for the World Cup. Gary says, ask James, will he be the next England coach? At least he won't pick his favourites and drop Williams. Can't do any worse.
I haven't got any favourites. Yeah.
I mean, you could be the coach.
Well, I said that last week. I couldn't do any worse, could I? No. England have lost 3-0.
Yeah.
They'd have lost 3-0 under me.
Another poll says, World Cup making the semis would be an achievement given what we've seen. Getting out of the group.
Yeah, because it's 10 nations.
And
there's no quarterfinals. No. Then getting out the group is going to be really hard.
So you'd expect Australia and New Zealand as 1 and 2 to be in
They're in
the
group,
pool A,
super group.
if you like,
they're in the group of 4.
4, and then you'd expect you need.
So there's England, Samoa, and Tonga as 3 of the teams in the other 2 groups.
Well, they're going to have to be seeded. They'll be seeded in the top 4 at England.
They will, because their world rankings
Yes.
will. But
Yes.
they're going to have
Luckily.
to beat either Tonga or Samoa.
or Samoa. Yeah, but I think that's doable. I mean,
get
into the
I think that's
semi.
doable.
But we've still got to do it.
I don't
agree.
I don't. If we play the tactics we played against Australia.
In Sydney, with the crowd behind.
Well,
we know. I mean, 2017, that semi-final against Tonga, before Tonga became Tonga.
we went as close to losing that as it's possible to do.
Why have the press gone easy on Wayne, says Paul? Are they intimidated by
I don't
him?
think they have.
I didn't go through any of the press
Read Brian
conferences.
Carney's column.
Well, let's put it
Well,
this way:
let's-
does he know where we're currently sitting? Because we might expect a knock
Well,
on the door soon.
Well,
I didn't start the program with. I've got a map now. So if the people watching here, like, there's the world, and it zooms in. I've learned how to use this on Google
Okay,
Earth.
it's a new toy
Yeah,
you've got.
so there is Leeds, and here's where we are. So if you want to find us, here's where. And look, it comes out. It says 4020 live. So the people watching, well, that's where we are.
Frightening.
It's amazing, isn't it? It's amazing what you can do with technology. What a load of rubbish.
So knock at the door.
shit.
Quick, turn the lights off. You know, trick or treat when everybody hides in the back room and the lights are off the front.
Right, let's read what Brian Carney said. Craig's picked another squad.
What, Brian Carney's put a comment on the
Brian
4020
Carney
live.
spoke
Oh, no,
to
okay.
Brian Carney's exclusively spoken to Sky Sports, who exclusively employ him. By his own, I'm not going to do the voice. By his own measure, the 2 most important campaigns of his 6 years in charge have been nothing short of catastrophic. Tell us what you really mean. Brian.
You don't need to read anymore, because that is it. I don't think the media have been.
A golden chance again for the game on these shows to fire up the sporting public's imaginations. Instead, the Kangaroos left with a clean sweep, and England barely left clutching the usual consolation prize of effort. 3 defeats, 3 below par performances, 2 tries in 240 minutes of rugby league. If Wayne was embarrassed in 2020 about England not beating Australia in so long, he must be incandescent now. Brian Carney.
He doesn't mince his words.
My.
So I don't think the media have been. I think we gave him some space because we like the fans so wanted this series to be something we could report positively. I think if you'd listened to the press box conversation from the second half through to waiting for Wayne and Williams to come into the press conference, there has been a turning by the media.
How was that? I've not seen the quotes of the press conference. Other than
There's gonna be a
I
review.
know I'm the best man
Yeah.
for the job, which is it smacks of absolute.
I don't
arrogance.
believe I am. I know I am.
Yeah.
I'm not even the best man behind this table to do this programme. But
Whereas I think if you're more contritional and say, well, actually, as part of this review, we need to reflect on my own performance.
Which he did. He was then pushed to say,
Yes.
but it's.
who guards the guards? Here's the thing about this squad. Here's Craig's picks. So players who should have been in the squad. And going back to your point about young players or younger players or people who can get the experience, and now it doesn't matter because it's finished, but players without credit in the bank. Nsemba, Walters, McDonald, Thompson, Martin, Robertson, Connor, Nicholson. These players should have been in the England squad. That's the difference between the teams.
More interested. I think Nsemba is a really interesting one because I think Wayne being so close to Wigan, he's seen a fall off in form there, and he hasn't translated that into the international. I think another coach would have picked Nsemba because he's physically difficult to handle. And I think when you go into a different environment, sometimes it brings out a different side of you, or the best of you, or you find yourself again. I would have put him in because I think you can build a World Cup pack around him. The interesting thing is which players would have allowed you to win a game. Because with the greatest respect to our forwards, they didn't really let themselves down, but they were never going to... I thought Mike McMeekin had a really good series, but Mike McMeekin is the kind of player that will help you not concede points. He will not be the guy that wins you the game because you're going to score points. The interesting young players that I think we missed out in giving some kind of either involvement, or I would have said certainly a third test inclusion. You may even have said second because we had to win it.
Yeah.
Harry Robertson's form at the end of the year was sensational.
He's got an X factor about him.
And he's quick and he's fearless and he can play in multiple positions. So again, the Wayne argument that need a bit of versatility, he could have given you that. And I think, again, Lewis Martin at Hull, he scored 30 tries in 30 games this year. and I know he's raw, and I know defensively, obviously he's never played against that calibre of opposition before. But without again picking on a player, what did we learn from Joe Burgess on Saturday?
No.
Coming back in, he's not played for 10 years.
And why hasn't he played for 10 years?
Because
he's
he
not
hasn't
good
been
enough at
good
international
enough.
level.
So we bring him back because we feel that he fits into that Wayne way of playing. He knows him from his days at Wigan, and he can trust him.
Trust him. He knocked on in the first time he touched the ball.
But we know that for all his try-scoring ability in Super League, he makes a lot of
for
mistakes.
the champion team.
He makes a lot.
Lewis Martin.
He then dragged a player into touch in the most ridiculous thing, off which they scored from. They scored from the knock-on.
Why would we have been any worse in a series that's gone than seeing whether Martin?
We wouldn't have been.
Can play at that level.
We picked a 31-year-old winger who hasn't played for England for 10 years, and who, according to the coach, because we know this because he said it on film before the series, no dickheads, no pricks, and we can all interpret that as we wish. Thanks you to the BBC, who are under a lot of pressure at the moment from pricks and dickheads. But they asked, or I assume they asked because it's in their report, about Shaun Wane, speaking to him on Thursday ahead of the game about Joe Burgess and what he's done on social media, which if you don't know, in 2024, this is from the BBC account, the winger reposted a comment on X by the far-right activist Stephen Lennon. You know who he is. On Burgess, Wayne said, "I like him, he is a personality and we need more of them. We are just guiding him in a certain way. I don't think we should shackle him. I like him showing his personality. He is a good guy and meant no malice." Bollocks. That's complete bollocks. And I'm sorry for swearing again. That you can't have a no pricks and no dickheads policy and have someone in the squad who's done that, been unrepentant about it.
I'm more interested in what it brings you as a... Mark...
He should have been in the squad regardless.
Marky Mark.
Regardless of that. He didn't have a great game, did he?
Didn't have a great series. But they persisted with him. They've given him the experience. They'll know next time they go and pick him, should his form allow it, that he knows he needs to be better. And he knows there'll be 4 or 5 players in competition to have it. But he's a young, raw talent. They had 4 debutants in the very first game. We didn't go down that road.
We picked someone with credit in the bank because he's one of Wayne's mates.
It's nonsense.
Because that's the only reason you picked Joe Burgess. He wasn't even the top try scorer in the competition.
And John Bateman in the first game.
Yeah, but Shaun he knows a good player. That's
Loyalty.
what he said. No, that his words. I know a good player. He said, I don't know who's on the Man of Steel.
Well,
blah blah blah. I know a good player.
You can say that before a ball's kicked. It doesn't stand up to scrutiny when you've lost 3-0.
That's what I mean. That's where I think he's set himself up to fail because you have to then judge him on his decisions and on the results, and that's the only thing you can judge him on.
Yeah,
irrespective of all the background.
But you also have to assess in that, has there been change over the course of not making a World Cup final to now having lost the series 3-0? Overall, bearing in mind...
It's gone worse, probably, I would say.
I mean, I know we beat Tonga and Samoa over those 5 tests, but with the greatest respect to the England players that played in those series, that wasn't the best Tonga and Samoa. The best Tonga and Samoa we've seen playing the Pacific Championships last year and this year. They couldn't bring all the players that they wanted, and we got what we deserved. We won both series without defeat. But what it didn't put us in position to do was to be better each time to then face the very best in the world.
So how does it change?
Well, as has been said, it can't change unless you change everything fundamentally. We're not going to change everything fundamentally because we've still got 14 teams.
You can change it, and everybody has an idea of who their team selection would be. Everybody will have an idea of who their coach should be. So I think you map out exactly what a coach has got to do. But Kevin Walters would just be given these 3 games. He isn't necessarily going to be the Australian coach in the World Cup.
No, I don't expect him to probably be so.
So if we look at the next major event on our horizon internationally with no preparation is a World Cup, where we're going to have to play maximum of 5 games, but 3 for certain. How do we go from where we are today, outside, of a 3-match series where there isn't a lot of hope when you've lost 70-18. You go, right, we want a coach that can bring together a group of players at very short notice. They're not going to have long with them. The likelihood is they're going to have the tournament with them. We need a coach that can come up with a specific game plan for each game as if it's a cup final, and needs the players that they select to invest in the fact that whatever that game plan is, they'll go with it. And it needs to be flexible, because you're not playing the same team, you're playing different teams with different styles of play. You know, you might be playing Lebanon in your first game, you might be playing Samoa in your second game. And you also want a coach, I think now, because of where we are, who is absolutely conversant with what is happening in the NRL. Somebody perhaps who is even coaching in the NRL at the moment, who can say, right, not only do I need to get my team prepared to a level where we can be the best we can be, but I have to be able to give them some tactical input and knowledge about what they're going to be facing, because I see it every week. I see how these guys train, I see how they prepare, I see how they play, I see how the NRL grand final that we witnessed between Brisbane and Melbourne was like nothing we'd ever seen before in terms of how open it was. It wasn't structured. It wasn't 5 drives and a kick and hope somebody makes a mistake. It was glorious. The 2023 grand final, very much the same. We're talking about the game has moved on, so you need somebody who is coaching in the game over there, which I think only gives you probably 2 candidates. One is Justin Holbrook, who I think you're looking at assistants, because I think anybody who's a head coach in the NRL, it won't be. It won't be. It's like such a ridiculous full-on job. So you're looking at assistants who would be able to come out of that full-time environment and be able to go into the international rank. So Justin Holbrook, who has got massive experience of how to play the game over here, but when he coached St Helens, coached them in such a style that they were both entertaining, unpredictable, but tough. And some of the people who are going to be key to England winning the World Cup, which still will be Morgan Knowles, Matty Lees, may even be Lewis Dodd if he has a really good year with Catalan Dragons. So Holbrook would be one candidate. The other one, and I know people are going to laugh.
Well, you've said it already, so they know. They know what you're going to say.
Care.
No, you're going to say.
But it's Brian McDermott.
You know who?
I don't know why. Why do you think people would laugh?
Well, I don't think
Brian
people would
McDermott.
laugh. I just think he doesn't have the reputation that his success deserves, because he didn't court publicity. So there is an impression about Brian McDermott that he was only successful because he had a good group of players, and actually he's not
Kevin
a great
Sinfield,
coach.
Rob Burrow, Danny Maguire.
Which is not
Ellis,
true.
whatever.
Well,
But at international level, you get the best players you can get. So you need a
can only
coach
judge
that
somebody
can
on-
bring the best out of the
if you're
best.
going to get rid of a coach based on the record, then you're only going to look at Brian McDermott's record.
Well, and I also think that the fact that the Gold Coast were desperate to pick him up after the season he had with Newcastle, they saw what he'd done there with their defence. I think the fact that every player I've ever spoken to that played under him said he's the best coach I've ever played
And
under.
those players who didn't necessarily personally like him.
No, or even get in his team.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing was, if you look at every grand final that Leeds won under him, it was a different game plan. It wasn't people going in saying, we know what Leeds are going to do, so we'll stop them doing it. It was like, I didn't expect Leeds to do that.
This is a coach who made a decision at Leeds to make Liam Sutcliffe there instead of Kevin Sinfield, who was going.
Yeah.
I had to roll back on it because Sutcliffe got injured. That's a big decision.
Oh, and even he had the conundrum of and this isn't about Leeds, but
that's what
he had the conundrum of trying to fit in Sinfield, Maguire and Burrow. And Sinfield was adamant that he wanted to play the 6 role. The decision to move Burrow to the auxiliary hooker, which caused consternation between the pair of them, was exactly the right thing to do. And all of the tries that are shown that highlight Rob's career, that were, are his legacy, the 2011 grand final try, because he came off the bench as a hooker. Mm-hmm. Now, they made, the fact that Brian McDermott wrote in Rob Burrow's book, and even both of them admitted that they'd made, Rob said, I didn't agree with what he did, but I admire what he did. Brian said, I probably didn't handle it as well as I could have handled it. That's men talking to men.
Yeah.
And that's what England need at the moment.
I think that's the challenge with Brian McDermott is managing that squad for a short period. His man management style is unique.
Well, he did America in the 2017 World Cup. And America were never going to win many, if any, games because he just didn't have the players. But I spoke to the American team on a couple of occasions after their games, and they loved what he did in such a short space of time. They absolutely thought that they'd let him down, where all he was saying was, you did the best you could do, I couldn't ask any more out of you. That's what we need. If we'd seen that with this Wayne team, I wouldn't have a problem.
Paul Wellens as his assistant, because he'll have had a year there in the NFL.
Well,
as well.
again, might be exactly the right sort of person we should be. The thing for Paul is he doesn't yet know what he's getting himself into. But
it's not one for him. He's just moving the other side of the world with a new club and all the rest.
Oh, he's an assistant.
There aren't many, but there aren't many options. So head coaches over here for me, it doesn't work if you're a head coach.
You don't need to be a head coach. You don't need to be full-time England coach.
No, you don't need to be full-time England coach. Well, I mean, for me, I don't see being a head coach of a Super League club and then being the England coach as well. I think you have to be an assistant.
Yeah. So I think we do have options, and I'm not frightened to say, even though he could be on his way here now, that we do need to make a change.
So who is running rugby league at the moment?
James.
The clubs. The clubs are running it.
Who is running the rugby football league at the moment? Which individual?
It's Nigel Wood and Abbey.
They have to make the decision, and they have to make it quick, because otherwise it'll just drag on like everything else. And if he's going to stay in charge of the World Cup, that's fine. Say it now.
I don't think they will make a quick decision.
Well, of course they won't, because they don't make anything quick, do they?
I think, again, it goes back to, and I know we're going to be short of
I
time
know.
soon. I know that it goes back to a report that was asked for of Kevin Sinfield, who was in a position at the RFL.
Oh, of course he was, wasn't he? Yeah.
As director of rugby, as to whether Wayne Bennett in 2019 should stay on and be the coach for the 2021, which ultimately became 2022 World Cup final. The recommendation of that 200-page report that Sinfield wrote was we should stick with Wayne Bennett. And the RFL decided it should be Shaun Wane. So I don't have a huge amount of confidence.
So why Commissioner?
At the moment.
200 pages.
And that was the last lot.
He was very thorough.
With lots of pictures.
Very, very thorough.
Because we are running out of time, because we've got a hard out, which is a broadcasting term I've always wanted to use. Paul said we won the 7-4-5 game, so that was good. I didn't watch it, I was working.
2-0.
Yeah. Up yours, Union. So well done. And I'm sure it raised loads of money as well.
Yeah, 10,000 people in Gloucester, which is fantastic.
So hopefully that will be back again next year. And it's a shame. I know people say there wasn't much build-up to it. There wasn't.
It's in the middle of an autumn international season for rugby union and the end of an Ashes test for rugby league. So the fact that it was a sold-out stadium,
which is the main thing. And it was on TV this year, which it wasn't last year. So hopefully next year again.
Back ahead, isn't it?
Especially when there's no. Well, everyone's not going to be at the World Cup, are they? We're not going. Unless
Brian wants us.
Let's do a podcast tour in Australia.
Unless Brian rings and says, "Do you want to come over?
Come to Ballarat and do a tour." Is there anything else we need to say? Next week it's the end of season review special, because I haven't been able to get a ticket to see CMAT, so I won't be going to that. Here.
Thought they made washing machine.
Well, you can get them on the secondary market, but I'm not paying £40 to go to a concert.
Where is it?
Leeds, the O2 Academy, the town and country club for the younger listeners.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's everything. I mean, I've got news, but I can't tell you.
I'd like to. Answer more of the
pick up a few before
we've only got sort of 4 or 5 minutes, but
we've gone through most of them. I'm afraid.
Not as afraid as I'm about going early on the mint.
Paul says, "Do you honestly think the RFL will have the wherewithal to recruit a new coach before the World Cup?" No.
Yes.
Carson.
Yeah, of course they will.
But they've got to.
I look forward. If Shaun is still in post, look forward to the explanation as to why.
Look forward to. Well, that's the thing. They've got to make a statement. Not doing anything else. That's what the RFL doing now. They've got to sort out the fixture list. They've got to sort out the format for these two divisions. What's going on? What's the playoff format? What's the championship format?
There's no prospect of Shaun resigning after that statement in the press conference, is there?
I wouldn't be
if he says, "I know I'm the best man for the job."
Yeah. If I'm an employee, I'm not resigning. I'm getting my payoff.
That's assuming there is one, depending on what your appraisal says.
Like if you were the chief executive in the past and got a.
But if your KPI is to get to a World Cup final, if your KPI is to win the Ashes or at least win one out of the three,
Phil Clark's turned up.
Then.
Sorry, that was just breaking the.
Was there anything else newsworthy from Saturday? Did we see anyone exciting or anything?
There's no transfers.
Oh, we're crowding in the south stand. I was reading about, and
really
that happened last year as well. Apparently,
too many people in the south stand, and people were moaning about that. People were saying on the BBC, if only we'd had Headingley first, then I mean, it wouldn't have made any difference as far as I'm concerned.
No,
The crowd was louder.
One thing that's interesting that Louis McCarthy Scarsbrook says in his column, which is not to prevent you going out and buying it and reading it, dear reader, is that he now, having been to Everton, to that test match where his son was a ball boy, he would have played the first test at Everton. He said that atmosphere was fantastic. Then go to Wembley.
I would have.
There's still something.
I would have put Wembley second
because the second game there's everything still to play for.
Yeah.
So you're still going to get your 60,000 people, but you know the atmosphere is going to be a bit less ribald, except if England have won that game at Everton.
Yeah.
And then finish it heading.
I mean, we can make up these as much as we want because it's not going to happen for about 2 years now. So, although we shouldn't we say now, right here in 2027. That's right, isn't it? Yeah.
2027.
So 2027, here the Kiwis are coming, and here's the 3 tests, and here's where they are. Not necessarily sell tickets yet.
But we don't know what Everton's fixtures are going to be.
Well, no, but it doesn't matter because they can say
Christmas early,
because it's not 2026, it's 2027. So we can say right in 2 years' time they can block that off like you can do. Do we know if Magic Weekend's on?
Nobody knows.
No. So I think that's it. I think that is it because we've run out of time.
When are the fixtures out?
26th of November.
Why are you excited? You just
Well,
pretend.
as soon as the season's over, you talk about fixtures for next season, don't you?
World Cup fixtures 24th of November.
Watch the
Salford will have another potential winding up petition between now and then to decide whether they're in the Championship.
I'll tell you what, they could have put that on TV. They might have made a bit of money out of that.
Well, they have cameras in the courtroom now.
Yeah.
Watch the referee's documentary. It's really good. I've written about that in the magazine. James has watched it. He liked it.
Didn't bang hard enough, Phil, so to speak.
Was it representative, the referees?
Yeah, it's a really good documentary. If you've not watched it, do watch it. I thought they portrayed the competitive side of referees between themselves.
I found that very interesting.
It's an interesting dynamic for referees because there's only one, maximum 2 referees can referee the major 2 finals in any year, but yet you've got to work together as a team throughout the year, and then ultimately somebody gets the nod. So it is a different,
and presumably
dynamic.
You've got to be supportive of your colleague.
Yeah.
Even if you don't get it.
But you don't get the nod, you're disappointed naturally, but then you've got to support your colleague, as you've said, or you might even be as a video referee or whatever. So that's an interesting dynamic that people probably won't understand unless perhaps they watch it. There's the emotional side of it. It did bring a tear to my eye.
Are you on it?
I wasn't on it.
Why? You analyse their performance.
No, it was very much the
James
focus.
Child the movie. Is that
Very much.
They should have shown you giving feedback.
Yeah, it was very much the focus on, particularly Chris and Liam with input on Ben retiring and Liam Rush and his debut. Really interesting documentary, I thought, and hopefully shows referees in a different light. Shows they've got personality.
I'm not going to say anything because I don't know what I've written in the magazine. Well, I do know what I've written.
You've written it.
I do know what I've written, but I don't want to spoil anything that I've written, especially the bit about Jack Smith because I think is that in there? Good, because
the Jack Smith story is incredible. I mean,
oh yeah,
and that's been talked about a lot. You know, about an ex-marine, couldn't become referee.
All right, spoiler alert for the magazine.
Well, no, I think
no,
it's in there. It's in the public domain.
No, but I'm going to tell you something else in a minute.
After the pod.
No, I'm going to say it.
Okay, go on then.
So Jack Smith tells his story about he got shot. They shot him, bastards. So he becomes a referee. Blah 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 blah. Did the poppy stuff on Saturday, didn't he? With lovely, nice shirt. Blah blah blah. Make some money. But the week before, he's the video referee, isn't he, at Everton? And while he was leaving the stadium, gets booed. So this is a man who's been shot representing his country in whatever conflict or whatever he was doing, and he gets booed by the same people who'll be, got to be quiet for the, got to.
The only thing I would say to that is good to know that he got booed just as much as me.
Nobody got booed.
Yeah, you've never been.
I think the difference between that is it's not personal, is it?
Well, I know,
And so,
but
I know what you mean. I think that's where, on occasions where individual comments were made to me as a referee, which were individual about me and my circumstances, were different. But yeah, as a referee, you accept that that's what's going to happen. But if people have not watched it, watch the documentary.
Yeah.
My question would be: is it worth watching documentary 2 and 3, episode 2 and 3 of the England?
Well, I've not watched them all yet.
I watched the first one and I did like it.
Second one's interesting.
The fourth one's out tomorrow. I'm going to watch them all for next month.
The problem is that you're watching it knowing what's happened.
Yeah.
So a lot of what's said is ultimately hollow.
Yeah.
But it does give you an appreciation and understanding of why I think we've been too insular and conservative in what we've done. That our whole thing is, we're the only ones that have got grit. We're the only ones that have got passion. We're the only ones that had Winston Churchill as a prime minister. And you just go, like, those days have just so gone.
Can we get Bob Hawke instead? 70 points to 18.
70
points to 18. Winston Churchill, 70 points to 18. You did not die in vain. We'll be back next Monday for the season review special.
That's if I can remember anything.
If we can remember any of it, we'll read the magazine because I'll have loads of stuff in and reflect on that. Oh no, great to see the wheelchair team at Heading League getting applause from the crowd. Shame they couldn't do a full lap of honour, but it was. And there's a team who have prepared for next year's World Cup by going down there.
And included a couple of debutants who will know what it's like to travel and play
If
in
they get
Australia.
selected, yeah.
It's funny how that works.
And you can hear from Finlay O'Neill and Rob Hawkins, who might well be the first ever back-to-back winner of the Golden Boot, on YouTube and Facebook. We'll see you next week. Have a great week.
We're off to eat biscuits.
We're off to eat biscuits. So we'll see you again soon. Thanks for watching.